Hello and welcome. Today's interview is brought to you by the Esri webinar, which will be on August 6th. Please be sure to sign up. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Matt Piper of Esri. Hi, Matt. Lovely to see you and good afternoon.
Hi, Melissa. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining. So can you first briefly introduce yourself and your role at Esri?
Sure. My name is Matt Piper. I'm the Global Industry Solutions Director for Infrastructure. So I lead our industries for electric, gas, telecommunications, water, AEC, and also digital twins at Esri. My background is I worked for 20 years as an electrical engineer at a large power company in Australia before moving to America now, where I've taken on my current role, and I'm now based out of Redlands in California.
Nice. As I said, I'm from there, so lots of fond memories. So with utilities, they're currently really undergoing significant challenges, as we know. Can you briefly describe your experience with some of these challenges and how Esri is working to help to meet these challenges?
Yeah, good first question. And they are being challenged a lot. But before I answer that one, I thought it might be worth just discussing Esri a little bit and how it relates to its core values, as I think that might help set up the context of some of the things I'll discuss a little bit later in our conversation. As you know, Esri is the world leader in GIS and location intelligence. And as a global company, it spans many different industries, some of which, I just mentioned I'm looking after. But while I've only been here for 4 years, what I really have appreciated with Esri is that even after its 50 years, it still holds true that its core value and the reason why it was founded is to help solve some of the world's most difficult problems. And it really does do this, and it does this in many ways, which includes solving some of these global issues like climate change and unemployment or social equity, biodiversity, overpopulation. And of course, it played a pretty significant role in managing, the recent COVID-19 pandemic. But as it relates to utilities, these challenges that are being faced at a global scale are not independent of the challenges that are actually being faced by utilities as well. So utilities, they're typically slow to change, but they're going underneath more change at the moment in the last 10 years than they've seen in the last 100 years. And what's exciting and scary at the same time is that it's plausible to think that, while it's fast now, it's probably never going to be this slow again. And that's an interesting way to think of it. So to answer your question on, what are some of the challenges that are happening, or what are the challenges utilities are facing? Well, on top of the global things that we just discussed, I think it's recognized that most utilities understand that the grid that we have today is not going to be proficient, or it's not going to meet the demands of the 21st century and beyond. And it's really the advancements in technology and the adoption of things like renewable energies and battery storage, microgrids, and even the proliferation of IoT and smart sensors, like smart meters on the network, that are really starting to drive these change. And it's all of these things that are causing this change to happen. And utilities are going to have to change how they operate. And they're going to have to change how they manage this thing called this future grid. So this challenge that we're talking about, there's many existing constraints that exist today that utilities still need to address. These are the things that they're very well known. Like these are the traditional issues like data quality. Every utility has bad data quality. Aging infrastructure, problems with reliability. There's the increased demand on already a constrained network. And all of these requirements are coming, and challenging the way that they have to do things today, but also affecting how they're going to hit these future goals of what this modern grid, might be. So one way that we like to think about at Esri that's proving very successful, and it's almost, I guess, foundational to achieving these goals, is through what we call the deployment of a geographic approach. So if you haven't heard this term before, a geographic approach, it really is like a critical way to addressing many of the life cycle issues of utilities, whether it's managing your assets, your operations, your projects, some of these big network projects that are running. And it's done in a way of thinking spatial first, right? So the geographic approach is a way of bringing all of your data sets together and thinking spatial to solve these problems. And it becomes this combination of technology and spatial thinking that starts to empower a lot of the visualization and the analysis, brings all the data that's relevant for a utility together and puts it into context of location. And this is really, I guess, starting to prove, to be key in setting up utilities' priorities as they do their planning, their designing, how they operate their networks. And it's all getting done, I guess, and delivered in a safe and efficient way. So, if you're tracking along, I think this is really starting to help utilities get to, I guess, their end state of what may be creating this digital twin, which is enabled through GIS. And it's helping them to not only, set the goals, but also measure these outcomes for these, strategic drivers such as sustainability, equity, safety, and efficiency.
Mm-hmm. And with regards to just Paris Agreement, decarbonization goals and such, I think many utilities have kind of set ambitious targets. How do you kind of see location intelligence assisting utilities and power producers to achieve these goals, which really are going to become more and more important as the years progress?
Yeah, I think you've said it very well there. They are becoming more and more important. So many organizations have, they've identified that it's a significant challenge as to try and hit these drivers for these renewable targets, right? Almost every country or state now around the world has made a commitment to meeting these targets of being carbon neutral, by 2050. With many, I guess, already moving these targets forward to 2030 and 2035. Some people have been very ambitious to hit these targets. And we see these green energy alternatives really being the enablers, at the transmission level. So things like wind and solar farm deployments, hydropower, biomass, but we're also seeing it driven all the way down now to the customer as well. As I spoke about earlier, the customers now have the choice, and they're making these environmentally friendly decisions to purchase solar, put battery storage in their house, or to purchase electric vehicles. So this global energy transition, I guess is a way of putting it, is really what a modern utility needs to transform to. However, it's going to be a journey over these coming years, and it's not going to happen at a flick of a switch or overnight. So while this future state, it is important to be planning for, as discussed earlier, there's still many, many issues that the utilities need to be embracing today. So as more of these green energy solutions come on board or are needed to achieve these targets, we do see that GIS begins to play more and more of a role as organizations begin to unpack the business value of what GIS can do. So, I guess this is probably best supported with a couple of examples. To better understand how GIS is used, I think GIS at the transmission level or the generation level, we see it really being applied for site suitability analysis. So if you think about, where is the best spot to put a solar farm or a wind farm? We bring in weather patterns, we bring in terrain, we help organizations understand that, to get the most value out of these types of infrastructure, these are the best locations. It also helps with better understanding or assisting in determining where to build infrastructure to support things like, as we spoke about, electric vehicles. So people have range anxiety, right? They don't like to drive their electric vehicles when they're not too close to an electric vehicle charging station. So helping organizations understand, okay, this is where the infrastructure is required to support the transition to electric vehicles. It also helps provide analysis on, I guess, customer demand. So, utilities have constrained feeders. Their networks are under pressure at the moment with existing loads. So we are using GIS to help better support their decision-making to understand, well, we're going to have to spend a lot of money on a capital program soon, or we can run incentive programs in certain areas to try and offset peak demand by encouraging people to put solar panels on their roof or to install battery storage to offset that peak demand. So there's a couple of examples, Melissa, I hope that support that, but it is a real challenge, and the clock is ticking as organizations, start encroaching in on some of those tight timelines.
Yep, 100%. We're definitely seeing even those targets, what initially looked very ambitious, or even changing and increasing as well, and getting more ambitious. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting time. So with Esri being committed to supplying geospatial tools and data to meet sustainability goals, can you share how location technology gives momentum to meet these goals faster? And what does this look like in the energy sector, which kind of ties in, I think there's some overlap with that fourth question as well.
There is, you're right. So more organizations I mean, you can jump onto almost any website now and look up an organization. There'll be a sustainability report. So more organizations are using the environmental, social, and governance, or the ESG criteria, to align their work to the United Nations sustainability goals, sustainability development goals, and the 2030 agenda for the sustainability development. So what our customers are discovering is that the application of this geographic approach is becoming, essential, or as I said, foundational to creating the sustainable networks for this energy transition. So with this geographic approach, we start to see that we begin to manage probably the two main pillars that we would say for sustainability. The first is about reducing really negative outcomes in the communities where they operate. So this could be, monitoring or, managing the harmful emissions. So that's the most common. But it's also about the lack of, the loss of biodiversity, and then managing other threats like in water industries, like water pollution. So it's a combination of all those elements. The second, is around how organizations are actually beginning to understand the complete supply chain and impacts to achieving their own sustainability goals. So what I mean by that, it's not just about their direct green energy targets, that they're trying to hit, but it's about all the indirect and the third phase of that as well. So what I mean by that is you can be moving towards green energy solutions at a corporate level, but you also need to start thinking about how you operate. So are all your vehicles electric vehicles, and how are you actually running your organization as a business in a green way? And the extension of that, the third phase is, are you resourcing the supply chain from other vendors or other organizations that are also green? So it's an actual end-to-end situation to ensure that the complete life cycle, the complete supply chain here is green and being done in a sustainable way. Because that's when we start seeing the Department of Energy, the DOTs, starting to work together and share information and collaborate to ensure that they are effectively meeting these targets together. So with that, I think, I think of it from this way, that really modern infrastructure management is what we're talking about here. It requires holistic thinking on both the micro and the macro levels, as all of this infrastructure and challenges being addressed. Well, we'd like to think they're spatial problems, right? And it's giving the rise to this geographic approach. So another way of thinking about this is we see GIS as a nervous system for modern infrastructure. So it is connecting the systems, it connects the workforces, your own organizational departments, but also connecting to other organizations and effectively out to the community. So it provides this connectivity that traverses all these different phases of infrastructure management and connects all these enterprise systems together, which greatly assists in better decision making. So right now, the world needs innovation, right? That's really what we need. We need to, we will not solve the problems we are facing by continuing to do what we've always done. I think that's pretty well recognized now. The variables have changed, the equations have changed, the networks we need to manage have changed, and the expectations of our customers and the way we engage with our communities has changed. So we need to think differently. And a lot of the way we discuss this is we need to think spatially as well. So what we must do, what's our call to action? We need to create a new generation of electric grids, transit grids, water networks, telecommunication networks that are sustainable, they're equitable, they're easy to manage, and they're resilient against all those things we discussed, as a result of climate change and climate risks. In the short term, I see this as helping us prioritize where to repair and where to build anew. In the long term, I see it as a means of ensuring that critical assets that we do create can sustain a growing and migrating global population amid this climate change, with the expanding networks to serve, more people in a more equitable way. So while Esri's mantra, is about understanding our world, one of my favorite sayings, Melissa, was, it came from a conference, I think it was back in 2013, when the founder of Esri, Jack Dangerman, was interviewing a guy. His name is Richard Sal Wortman. He's the founder of TED, the Technology, Entertainment and Design. And during that conversation, it came out as Richard was talking, that understanding precedes action, and that GIS is the key to the kingdom. And I just think that statement alone is really, setting ourselves up now that, the more we realize the fundamental importance of GIS and the role that it plays in managing modern infrastructure to hit these sustainable goals and move us forward, the better off we will be to meet some of these challenges.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Matt. Very interesting conversation. As you said, the status quo of utilities, it's just perhaps we need to come a long way still before we get to where we need to be for the future. So thank you so much. Interesting chat today. And also thank you for watching. If you'd like to go ahead and see more with Matt and also Esri, go ahead and sign up for the webinar on August 6th. Thank you so much and have a great day, Matt. Pleasure.
Thanks, Melissa.